Ongeza kidogo tu volume. Is that better? Yeah. Stephen Leto, can see you. Nisana. In the now commonly being referred to as the People's Loyal Position. So my colleagues are fully behind this statement. Fellow Kenyan patriots, this is entitled Jamhuri Season Address, today December the 9th, 2024. I'll repeat, fellow Kenyan patriots, receive this message of seasonal greetings and goodwill wherever you may be in our country and beyond. We thank God that He has enabled us to enter the festive season at the end of the year. Traditionally, our Jamhuri celebrations as Kenyans have usually raised the curtain to a joyous period for the entire global community. Our Jamhuri activities usually flow into an extended season that merges with Christmas, and the New Year festivities. It is usually time to forget some of the challenges through the year and to join our friends and families in joyous activities. Accordingly, we send the festive season's greetings to the friends of our Kenyan nation throughout the world. And at this juncture, congratulate the people of Ghana for a tremendous show of democratic achievement. Therefore, President Mahama and the team, we congratulate you and we wish you well together with the great people of Ghana. Nonetheless, we remain conscious of the hard times facing a majority of Kenyans, both as individuals and families this year. It has been a very difficult season, marked by huge unemployment, heavy taxation, confusion in healthcare, lack of direction in education because of the unclear direction in the rash implementation of the CBC education, oppressive university education funding, insecurity, impunity, state opulence, and a rigid government that does not listen to anybody. Still, let us not give up on the joy that has traditionally come with the Jamhuri and Christmas season. It is remarkable that this season is also marked by the International Anti-Corruption Day, which is marked today, the 9th December, and the International Human Rights Day, which will be celebrated everywhere in the world tomorrow on December the 10th. Then there is also the climax of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, which has gone on for slightly over 2 weeks now. Put together with Jamhuri Day on Thursday this week, this is a truly significant season. We are called upon to solemnly reflect about the import and wider relevance of some of these remarkable days as citizens of our country and citizens of the greater global community. We are especially called upon to do an honest audit of our performance as a Kenyan nation in all the spaces that are being celebrated this week. What is the reading of our human rights record? For instance, what are we doing about winning the war against gender-based violence? What is the state of our self-determination as an independent nation? And what have been the dividends of independence through the years? What gains have been made, if any, under the Kenya Kwanza regime? How have state authorities cushioned the citizens to give them meaningful comfort in what is traditionally a season of celebration after odious labor throughout the year? We regret that little of the ending year has brought us any good as a people. Our collective national life has been troubles, and nothing but troubles. There is indeed very little to celebrate under the Kenya Kwanza regime that must make the heroes of our independence turn in their graves. The present regime stands for negations and reversals of all the promises and hopes of Jamhuri in 1963. The founders of our nation freed us from the yoke of oppression and colonialism. This regime is keenly bent on reversing this gain by restoring both physical and psychological torture. Our human rights record is at an all-time low. Good governance, as promised under self-determination, is in a terrible spin. Violence against women and the exclusion in important spheres is at an all-time high. An average of cases, 196 of gender-based violence against women are reported every day. by the state. Remember, even genetically foodstuffs are with us. In the wake of the fakery around fertilizers and seeds, Kenyans also suffered a thorough beating by Mother Nature. Floods hit many parts of our country. Kenyans drowned in flood waters as the state looked on, unmoved. And when it intervened, it was to pull down people's homes. You remember, Madare? Remember? Without any effort at all to give them the comfort of alternative shelter. The Kenyan state reported that it had set aside hundreds of billions of shillings as floods disaster management funds. To date, we don't know what happened to those monies. Images of marooned families in the middle of heavy downpours and floods still haunted the conscience of men and women of goodwill. Forced demolitions still continue even today under one pretext or the other. The objective is to grab public under the amorphous so-called, I quote unquote, affordable housing project. This project is shrouded in blatant opaqueness. This can only speak to corruption in high places in a compromised national state. Unfortunately, when Kenyans ask questions about this opaque project, they're accused of being unpatriotic, tribal, hostile to the government, and idle. Indeed, wenye upepo mbaya. Both the opacity and the hostility by the state against inquiry speak to only one thing: corruption. We have bad news for President William Ruto and his pawns. No amount of blackmail or intimidation will make us relent on asking questions about corruption in our country. We are going to talk about corruption, and we are going to fight it too. Like we did. We went to court against the Andani JKI takeover. No amount of threats, intimidation, abductions, and disappearances, or even killings, will stop us from demanding accountability. We are not just asking, we actually demand accountability. It is in accordance with the rule of law, in accordance with our Constitution 2010. It has also been a season of confusion and unrest in our schools, in our hospitals, and in our universities. Moi University is a glaring example of misrule. We have seen confusion in our airports and across the counties, all owing to what can only be described as felonious conduct by Kenya's national executive. Professional staff in these places have spent months at a time on strike. The government has failed to honor legitimate collective bargaining agreements with teachers, with university lecturers, with doctors and other health workers, as well as with university staff. Other Kenyans have gone on strike out of fear of loss of jobs and livelihoods due to reckless decisions and actions by a short-sighted and uncaring government that entered into such shameful deals as the obscure Adani tenders. There are such fears in the Airports Authority and among members of the now defunct National Health Insurance Fund, NHIF. Meanwhile, the Social Health Authority, SHA, that replaced NHIF, is in a state of thorough confusion. Kenyans are dying every day for want of health care because of the confusion in SHA. Was this SHA intended in the first place as a scam? Almost as if it has been in the grip of some mysterious forces from the spiritual world, Kenya Kwanza is visiting untold atrocities upon its citizens. This has been the season of abduction, disappearance, torture, and killing of Kenyan youth. In all this, the government has feigned ignorance. The year we are about to end will be recorded for the battering in the streets and for the killing of our Gen Z youth. Their only sin was that they came out to exercise democratic self-expression and to stage peaceful protests against an untrustworthy regime that has gone rogue. And how did the regime act? They did a parallel of goons to turn otherwise peaceful, legitimate protests upside down. Our youth protested against oppressive tax policies and against bad financial laws and practices. They demonstrated against shameless displays of opulence and of corruption in high places in government. For this, they were battered, their heads were violently opened in the streets. Those pictures outside the National Assembly are still fresh in the minds of Kenyan parents. Their lives were taken away in the prime of youth. They were shoved into gunny bags and thrown into dump sites like bad rubbish. What government does this anywhere in the world in the 21st century? I recall when we had to go and join the people of Embakasi South and witness that terrible, terrible sight. If it was a responsible government, by now they would have sent the Army, National Youth Service to clean up that mess. But do they care? This regime is determined to reverse the democratic gains that Kenyans have made over the years. It has captured the legislature and reduced it to a cheap rubber stamp for the executive. And today, it is busy stalking the judiciary with the same intents. We hail Kenyan youth for standing up to this oppressive and corrupt regime. We assure them that they are not alone. They are our children. Their welfare is of the greatest import to all of us. We shall not look on as their future is stolen from them by an uncaring regime. We are going to fight for you and with you, especially in the new year. To that extent, we will give direction not too long from now. Prepare for the start of what I call the final liberation of our country. We are sending a warning to the abductors and to the killing squads. The writing is on the wall. Your days are truly numbered. We intend, including court advisory, to send our officers to Haiti. This kind of impunity is hugely reprehensible. We cannot allow our country to become a rogue state, international scene. We are closely looking into the matter of deployment to Haiti and will address it more comprehensively in the new year. Closely related to this is the fact that under Kenya Kwanza, our country is now gaining the dubious distinction and outrage of abducting foreign nationals on our soil and deporting them leaves the stage. Fellow Kenyans, these are only a few many concerns in our country today. In a few days' time, they will paint a rosy picture of non-existent achievements over the past 2 years. As this regime has now distinguished itself as an edifice of dry-eyed lies, we urge you to ignore them with the contempt they deserve, knowing well that liberation is never too far. Our day as Kenyans is coming. Otherwise, we wish you a peaceful and reflective festive season. May God bless you. May God bless our country, Kenya. Amen. Yes, sir. And I want to really be, if you notice the tone of my presentation, it really does not call for a lot of questions. I want you to digest. I want you to digest what I've just said. Please don't dilute it with your questions. Some of those questions have been addressed. But let me hear you, sir. Yes, sir. That's what I'm saying. For example, oh, hi. Babayao, I wish he could answer some of these questions. You know, that is defeatist. We are one nation under God. So please don't run to your tribal cocoon and give us that kind of trash. Another question, sir? Yes, Steve. Yeah. Yes, sir. They have wasted a lot of time. Let them withdraw the case that is, I said it, state-sponsored through a judge in Kiambu, user-friendly. Let him remain, or let her remain nameless. But she knows what she has done, because that was a tactic in order to delay the reconstitution of the panel in the first place, and then the IEBC. We demand, Kenyans demand this, and I stand in solidarity with the church organizations who have also said the same. It is, the ball is actually in William Ruto's court to tell his proxies to withdraw. You've just mentioned one of them. Withdraw the matter in the Court of Appeal. And then we can discuss if they are still in Azimio. Yes, sir. So first of all, an election based on what law? Number one. And number two, even if there was, all right, these matters were canvassed before the judge who had the matter. For example, that Augustus is a young man I know, okay? And I'm always ready to talk to him. He's one of us. But he should not allow himself to be used, because he knows the party he represents does not have one member of parliament, or indeed an MCA, maybe an MCA, because the law is very clear that it should be parties with representation in parliament, taking into account as well gender. That matter was canvassed before the judge and a ruling issued. That is what they have rushed with the assistance of Kenya Kwanza to appeal. And because National Assembly had 1 week since the matter was adjudicated upon by a judge, Azimio given 48 hours to give a name, which we did within that stipulated time. Therefore, my brother, Speaker Wetangula, being the chair of Parliamentary Service Commission, should have acted with that 1 week. But gerrymandering, buying time, so they can allow Muli to go to the Court of Appeal, which is what they did. That is the absolute truth. And if Muli as any member of parliament, his party as a member of parliament, then we will also hear. Because that was what was clearly adjudicated. This attempt, therefore, to blame Wiper, to blame me, is completely hogwash, I'm sorry to tell you. It doesn't stand in the face of what is lawful, what the courts have done. And I must congratulate Justice Lenaola for coming out so boldly. We don't expect normally a judge to come as boldly as he did, including during the impeachment process, when even filing system within the judiciary was interfered with by the executive. But those are matters that I think will be dealt with in court. Which I was privileged to co-chair along with the member for... that NADCO report had 9 pieces of legislation which were supposed to be passed expeditiously in Parliament. In fact, the speed with which they impeached Gachagua could have been employed, I've said that before, to implement the recommendations of NADCO. The appointing authorities were 2, William Ruto and Raila Amolo Odinga. I was answerable to Raila Odinga, but we gave the report to both of them. And then one morning, I'm called, I'm told, go to, they are signing the IEBC now, because that one at least went through, yeah, the Amendment Act to IEBC. One would have expected they amend it when they said, okay, we have now signed into law the Amendment Act of IEBC, that they were going now to move with speed. But instead, putting all manner of clogs and showing political bad faith. That is what I can call it. In fact, my worry now is what happens, because Raila and William Ruto are supposed to consort and agree on who becomes the chairperson of IEBC. We made it so easy for my friend Raila Odinga. I hope he can stand strong and act for once in the best interest of Azimio. Because when I last checked, I was still in Azimio. And the leader is Raila Odinga, who appointed me to NADCO. We need to be able now to act in the best interest of this country. This matter of IBC is the most urgent issue. The people of Banisa constituency lost their member of parliament over a year ago. They're still waiting for a by-election. And others. Why disenfranchise Kenyans? Because of political expedience. But as I said, I invite you, maybe I can share with you some of my thoughts on why the delaying tactics. And if we do that, do not record me and forward to Itumbi. People are desperate, absolutely desperate. Yes, sir. Yeah, I said Muli is one of us. He comes from my home county. Yeah, he tried to run for speakership of Kitui. He wasn't successful. I certainly wish him well. And if there's any way I can help him, but let him not be used as a proxy to delay an important national matter. Of course, that recording by Tumbi, which is a strange thing, had to do with, because Augustine Muli went to the office of Junet Mohammed, who is, of course, the secretary. As we speak, the Secretary General of Azimio is Junet Mohammed. And that is the last very important thing up to date Junet has done. Because he forwarded the name of Dr. Koki Muli in accordance with what he had agreed within Azimio. So the name of Koki Muli was agreed upon following the direction of the judge who determined the matter, and gave Azimio 48 hours to forward a name. That supersedes what we are talking about, my friend. Who was it who was asking that question about who may have garnered what votes, whatever? That did not take into account the fact that one, the national, whatever the party is, yeah, because there are 23 parties, by the way, in Azimio, yeah, but one had to have a parliamentary party. And everybody in this country knows Wiper Democratic Movement is a parliamentary party. And by the way, Professor Adam Solo went in easily because Raila and us that time had agreed on the formula, which formula was messed up by the political party's liaison team. That is the whole story. They liaised, they tried to say, oh no, we want to teach, I don't know who, what lesson. I think a lot of them have since regretted. And we are moving. We want a strong Azimio. even if they do not have membership in parliament, there's 2 members of the coalition. But unfortunately, the law says, stipulates, you have to have at least membership in the House. And this is the clogging. But I'm telling you, the truth of the matter is the state interfered, okay, to make sure that Koki Muli's name is not forwarded. Unfortunately, the names have to be forwarded as a team, the 9 of them. And I think my friend Weta knows the truth. Thank you. I think I've belabored that point. Nawashukuruni sana. So my friend can go and have a cup of tea. Asanteni sana. Mungu awabariki. And surely have a wonderful festive season.